Today we have a special guest in the building, Sadat X, one of the members of Brand Nubian. We're happy to have him on today. He's a real prolific figure in hip hop. We want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for joining. We're very humble to have you on here today. But the name Anwar Sadat is so powerful. Anwar Sadat X. Where'd you get it from? I know you've asked this question a lot, but where'd you get it from? How'd you come up with it? And
Well, basically, it was part Anwar Sadat. He was a great man. Tried to unite people, but then it also came out of the 5% Nation.
Right.
You understand? I was a member of the 5% Nation, and I took that name Sadat and I manifested on it as being like a bright, shining light. You understand what I'm saying? So, I felt that was more of a fitting name, being that where the group was going at that time. We was definitely, diving into the lessons and trying to come up out of the situation which was at hand at that time. You remember when we first came out, man, it was a lot of things going on, man. It was a lot of struggles in New York. It was the Crown Heights riots. Yep. It was the young boy who got killed over there in Queens trying to go get
I'll tell you something. You mentioned that before. I was watching one of your interviews before. So I went to Howard Beach. His name was Michael McDonald. I was in Howard Beach when that happened. I was in PS 207. My mom took me from Queens Lutheran and put me over there in school over there, and I remember when that happened. They
that was a big thing.
Pizza, yep. Yep. Sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry, brother. I'm just
no problem. That's nothing.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, coming up in I'm originally from Queens, coming up in the Bronx or whatever. And at that time when crack was very prevalent, this is when back in the days when we were the trains used to have graffiti on them. We grew up like that until Ed Koch cleaned it up. You were part of a righteous movement. Brand Nubian started off as, I remember when y'all did All for One, One for All, you guys were mostly it was about black movement, black power. Describe how that time was for you, just coming out with the first project and what you went through and what was going on in your head mentally and your heart and what was around you and surrounding you and everything, please.
All right. Well, first, to give a brief history, coming from the Bronx, moved to New Rochelle. That's like a suburb of the Bronx, and growing up there, it was a great place to grow up. You learn to deal with a lot of races, and it was multicultural. And Grand Poobah at first, Poobah, he was in a group called Masters of Ceremony.
Didn't know that.
You understand? And me and Jamal, we're a little bit younger than him, so. We were coming up in New Rochelle trying to rhyme. That was at the time hip hop was still kind of in its young stages. It was starting to take a hold, and we was enthralled by that. So we would be rhyming, and what happened was Poobah took an interest in me and Jamal. We were all solo artists.
Okay.
You understand? I would do my thing, Jamal would do his thing, and Poobah would take us to the studio and like co-produce us. Like we might have 8 hours of time. Lord Jamal do 4 hours, I'll do 4 hours, and we'll put it together like that. Mm-hmm. We went to a studio in the Bronx, Jazzy J Studio, Strong City, and it just so happened he had a track, and we all did something on the track, and it sounded good. Mm-hmm. And being that Poobah had the inroads already in the music industry, he took it downtown. He was Dante Ross was a fan of his. Dante was at I believe at the time Tommy Boy Records, and he took an interest. He said Poobah was always one of his favorites, and he took an interest in it. We did a couple of more joints, and he was like, if y'all want to, we can get a deal going and make some music. So that's where we went. Like as you see, like a lot of groups, that they were together for years ahead of time trying to make a movement. We just came together, and within about 6 to 7 months, we was actually making a record.
Wow, wow, interesting.
Wow,
beautiful.
Wow. Well, listen, speaking of records, I got to get right into it, man.
Okay.
The Slow Down. Listen, I was right fresh. How old was I? Maybe 17, 18 when Slow Down came out, when the crack epidemic was at its height. Mm-hmm. And, bro, when I tell you that song was like, bro, the systems was in the Jettas and the Vobos. You know how it was in those days, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when your voice, it just, the whole soul of the streets, man. You had like that was it. Hey, bruh, my man. What made you even write? How'd you write that rap? Because that right there was legendary. That verse right there was legendary.
I mean, when I was coming out of the crack wars, man, that was a time, and especially in New York history, man, it was the crack explosion. You know, we made that joint. You know, I tried to keep it close to the curb at how it actually was. There was a lot of bosses running around in the street, especially where I was at uptown. Or shit, I can name bosses from Boy George to Unique to AZ to Rich to Gangsta Lou, to my people over there, my Dominican crew, Wild Cowboys, my man Chango on them, YTC, you know what I'm saying, Yellow Top crew. So it was all over New York, man. Then out in Queens, Brooklyn had their Supreme team, Glaze, all of them. So it was a time, man, when the money was flowing in New York, but it was the crack war. You know what I'm saying? People was falling. Everybody in New York knew somebody that was affected by that. It destroyed the community. You know what I'm saying? It took a lot of brothers off the street eventually, and it destroyed families. And at the time we was coming out, that's what was going on. And we was like, when we came out, we had to speak to the people, you know, like being tenants of the 5% Nation, our duty was to teach. You understand? And a lot of people, they got it twisted. They felt that because we were teaching, you know, that rhetoric and following that type of lifestyle, we were against other races. And it wasn't that. We just felt that before we can get with everybody else, we got to save our brothers, because our brothers was in such a sad state at that time. You understand? It was like it was ravaging the country. And it started in New York and it spread out, and everywhere was affected by that. So we just had to speak on that.
Awesome. So I know "Feel So Good" was one of your first singles, right? And that was shot. You shot the video with Fab Five Freddy.
Well, we shot the Fab Five video. That was Wake Up.
That was Wake Up. My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was Wake Up. We shot that at the school too, at the law school. Right. And what's ironic with that is, like, when we shot it, you know, being that we was on Electra Records, they were new. They had a whole new rap division. They didn't really understand what it was. So when we shot the video, you know, it slipped through. But I guess, like, you know, people, and it slipped through at MTV at first, but then I guess as they start getting aware of it, a lot of people, I guess, pull their coat and was like, yo, they're talking about this. And they eventually pulled that video. We had to change it around and re-edit it, you know, to make it conform with what was going on with MTV and the rap thing at that time.
Okay. Listen, like I said, that record, that album right there was a classic. Like, that album was a classic. I remember we played it. Me and my dudes was in my basement playing it over and over and over. And I drive trucks, right? So I listened to all that music from back then, right? And when I go back and listen to that music, it's like, damn, I missed that. All those jewels y'all was dropping. It's like, that need to be out right now. It's perfect time. Yeah. And so this is one crazy thing I got to ask you, right? One thing I got to ask you. On Slow Down, Wooly Wooly, was that a real person or was this just in the rhyme?
It was an amalgamation of a real person. Like, it was Wooly Wooly was my man over here, was my man over there. Like, there was a lot of Wooly Woolies in the hood. Like, at that time, man, it was you know, like the epidemic, it was going down so much that there was a lot of con going on. You know what I'm saying? Dudes would come up with you. A lot of people began smoking that you wouldn't expect, you know, teachers, mothers, working people. Like, it caught a hold of people, man. And that was just a composite of everybody. You know what I'm saying? Wooly Wooly was a composite of everybody.
Right. We was calling people down the streets. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah. I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. Listen, it is what it is. But that whole thing, that whole energy was just there, bro. And I loved it, and I still love it.
So, no doubt.
So one of your tracks that really got me when I was, you know, because you went from an era when you've covered a lot of time span of me growing up. So there was an era when I was 10, 11, 12 years old when I heard your music, and then I went to being a teenager. And one of my favorite tracks by you is Common Sense 19999. It was I believe it was with Raucous Records when you did it.
Yes.
How did that come together? How did that track come together? And the video, I think I heard one time you say it was real cold when you had to shoot the video, but like, how did that track come together? How did that whole situation form?
That was done on Raucous. I think High Tech did the beat. Mm-hmm. You know, Common had called me and said that, you know, he was a fan and I was a fan mutually. Mm-hmm. And he said he had a joint for me to get on, and I went down there. We did the video, and at that time, that was one of the top 4 coldest days recorded in New York.
Right.
And we did that down by the water, so we had to keep going in and out of the trailer to keep warm. But it was a great thing, you know. Talib came and made appearance. I think Pharoah Monch was there. J. Rule was there. So you know, that was an era, man, of a feel good era. Like that was back in the days when you really couldn't do it in the crib like how you do it now and just send it off and you know, send it back. You had to actually be in the studio, which is kind of one thing I miss with the vibe. I mean, you can still get over with it nowadays, but when you had to be there with the person and y'all had to connect and actually do it together, you know, that made more of a symmetry for the record. Like you could hear records nowadays with people on it and you could tell, well, I can anyway. I'd be like, they wasn't in the studio together. You know what I'm saying? He sent that in and they pieced that together. Well, that was done all at the same time. You know, like I fed off of his verse. I heard his verse and I was like, all right. Because I remember I wrote something at first and it didn't match. So I was like, nah, don't even keep that. Let me rewrite this to what you're saying. You understand? I had to sit back and rewrite it and think about it. And you know, I was always blessed to be able to go into the studio and write on the spot and actually get the full vibe of the record. So it was more of a love vibe than in New York. You understand? Like dudes would come together. Sometimes you have a session and you might have a brand Nubian session when Tip might come through or somebody from De La Soul or Drez come through. It was like a, you know, it was like a family thing. It was
Native
new.
tongues.
Definitely.
That's what's up. So what's your, I always wonder, you know, I believe you have one of the most, there are a few artists that have your skill set as far as lyrical ability, but then also with your cadence, with your voice.
Yes.
You have one of the most profound voices in hip hop ever.
Hip-hop. And
I always wanted to give you your flowers with that, along with your skill set. How do you feel that worked for you? And also, what is your process when you're writing a 16 or when you're writing preparing for an album? Like what gets you in a comfort mode of doing that?
Well, I think part of what helped me with my cadence and with my flow is like I was always a fan of learning. You understand? So I always was a fan of reading. You know what I'm saying, and gaining knowledge. That's what was taught in the 5% Nation, that you always are seeking knowledge. So back then I was a fan of being smart. You understand? Like it was a mark, it was a medal to be smart, you know, which I felt nowadays is kind of have dumbed down. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of these kids, they don't, you know, it's I wouldn't say it's not cool to be smart, but it's more cool to just do what everybody else is doing. Back then, you know, I wanted to be smart. I wanted to be learning. And one thing about me, I was a fan of a lot of people, Big Daddy Kane, Kool G Rap, all those people, but I didn't want to be them. I wanted to be my own self. And I was like, Kane got his style, Kool G Rap got his style, this person got his style. How can I fit in? Rakim got his style, KRS-One. How can I fit in on this level and still, you know, not compromise myself? So I had to find my lane, you know, find my rhythm, find my skill set to do that. And how it came out, like, you know, like this just came out of me. It was nothing planned. You know, it was just the way that I wrote and just the way it came out. Because at first I didn't think people would be a fan of that because it was off pace. Some of my stuff didn't rhyme, you know, and that was at a time when people were rhyming line for line. And I was like, well, damn, I don't really want to rhyme like that. So how can I do it and make it still fall in the pocket? Like I would do a 16 and I would know I would know actually the count of the beats, and I'd be like, as long as I can fit it in this 16, I might can get away with it. So I would always just try to, whatever I did, make it fit in that 16.
Wow. I always wondered that. That's a great question, but I always wanted to know because it was nothing I ever heard in your voice. It's a few guys that have that type of cadence of a voice. You can hear it as soon as you hear the music, you hear the song, you know, that's the dot right there. You know what I mean? And then and how you flow. It's a question. You did a song with Biggie. Were you in the studio with Biggie when you guys did that song together?
Me and Big was right there. You understand? We was right there. I got a call from Puff, who I knew, you know, being at the time I lived in New Rochelle, and New Rochelle is right next to Mount Vernon. And like I seen the rise of Puff. Like I remember Puff was regular dude dancing, Puffy from Mount Vernon, and went to Howard. You know, I saw his rise in Howard, and he called me one day. He was like, you know, my artist Biggie, he's like a fan of yours, and you know, we want to do a joint. We can't. He was like, we're gonna go down to the studio. They called me to come down to the studio. I went to the studio, and Lord Finesse did the original beat. You know, they changed it when they did the duet.
Right,
but Finesse did the original beat, and I just remember what was so ironic for that session is like I remember coming in and writing, like we had a whole box of Phillies, we had some Mo, we were drinking, and like I just remember I was writing my stuff, but Big, he ain't write it down, but he was mumbling. Like I remember he just was like mumbling to himself, you know, like, and we went in there and actually did it.
Wow. And so on that record, Biggie, he says, I got 7 Mac 11s at the historic verse that he says with Tupac and Big Daddy Kane when they did the show out there in Brooklyn. That's the same verse that he did on that show as he did with you, right?
Exactly.
Wow, that's crazy.
And he wrote that right then and there. I remember that. Like we was there for like all night, and he sat there. You know, he didn't write his down. I wrote mine down, and we went and laid it down. I don't know why they chose not to use it on the album. I mean, that was a conflict with Puffy, but Big always said, you know, I wanted that joint on my album.
Right. That was great. That was sick right there. That was sick, man. Oh man.
So I'm gonna switch the segue to it. So I know you before you got into the working for Riley Duke currently in the hospital, whatever. You were a school teacher. Very very important thing. I believe in, you know, shaping minds of young people. It's very important that we have that first contact is everything. You being in the hip hop world and also being a school teacher for the time that you were, how were you able to navigate that? How did it feel? What were some things that you learned, and especially with the youth at that time?
It was cool in dealing with the youth because basically I was living in Brooklyn then. So I was teaching at a school which basically was in the community where I was. You know what I'm saying? I had access to the kids. I would see the kids, you know what I'm saying, outside, whatever. But the thing was, like, these kids was like middle school. You know, middle school is a funny age, man, you know, because, you know, as opposed to elementary school and as opposed to high school, when you're in middle school, you coming into your own, so you think you know everything.
Right.
You know, and when I came in, they didn't know nothing about Brand New Man. They didn't know nothing about Sadat X.
Right.
You know, so I had to find a medium to actually to reach them, you know. So, you know, I really had to like watch the teachers and learn how to make PowerPoint presentations. I had to learn how to make lesson plans because, you know, like in school and dealing with kids, if you come into a classroom and you're not prepared, the kids know. And being that they know, they just gonna go Bazooka Joe on you. So I have to know how to go in, you know, how to have, you know, certain things. You know, I knew I wanted them to learn hip hop, but I couldn't force feed them because what happens when you force feed a baby? He throws up. So I couldn't force feed him. I had to break the food down into morsels that they could consume. So, you know, I would throw in what I would throw in. For instance, like I knew I knew that Bismarck was on the show that they used to watch called Yo Gabba Gabba. So when I would put Bismarck on, they would be like, yo, that's the man from Yo Gabba Gabba. And I'd be like, yeah, he is. But did you know he's also a rapper?
Right.
And I would, you know, play stuff from him and get them into to learning it, like different songs that new artists use, like French Montana had used the Lords of the Underground beat. So I had to explain, like, yo, that he didn't make that beat, like he used that beat. So, you know, then we would have
Funky Child, yep.
Yeah, I would let them rock out like on Fridays, you know, and I would let them play what they wanted to play. But the criteria that I had behind it is, number one, you got to find a version that don't have no cursing, and you got to be able to explain this song to me like I never heard it before, and you got to tell me why you like it and what's the significance of it. And, you know, gradually, I taught for like 4 or 5 years, and like my class used to be packed. Like I used to have class where it would be kids from other classes coming to my class where I would have to make them go back to their class. Like, yo, you can't even really be in here right now. You know, like go to your class. Like sometimes the kids would bug out. And if I wasn't working that day, the school would call me and be like, yo, he's bugging. Can you come up here and talk to him? And I come up there and being that I knew the kids, I'd be like, yo, you already know, man. You know I know your father. If I tell your father right now, he's gonna come up in here, he's gonna wild out on you. He's like, yeah, I'm bugging. Yeah, you bugging right now. Yeah, I'm going into class. So that was the thing. And to this day, the kids, they hit me on the gram and stuff and be like, yo, Mr. Murphy, yo, you taught me about rap. And, you know, it's a couple of girls now that they start in college now. And it's like, wow. I remember when they was in middle school when I started. Right.
Awesome.
Hey, listen, Sadat, I got so much. Being honest, this could take like 3 or 4 hours, bro. Like, listen, I got all my dudes who can't wait till they see this interview because, put it like this, back in the day, right? I bought a polo coat, right? And it was like an 8-ball polo coat, the leather one with the polos on the back, on the side. And so people started calling me Polo. And then when Slow Down came out, I shaved my head bald, I put the shades on. They was like, oh, you trying to be Sadat? I was like, damn. I was like, hey, listen, and I didn't miss. Them ladies, I didn't miss, bro. I'm being honest. I didn't miss, bro.
Got you.
I wore the low for you today.
All right.
I wore the low. My man got it from Far Rock on the low. You know, the trunk, whatever. Like, I'm gonna put his name out there. Like, go put his name out there. But he threw me the joint. But I say, you know, I know you a big low person.
Right. All my homies, they rock low. I didn't put it on because I didn't want to be subliminal. Like, oh, they rocking low because about. My cousin rocked it. I didn't want to just do it like that, but all my dudes, they all rock low, like to the core.
That's this is low right here, right? You know, I got them. So I always try to stay with the piece, man. And it's funny because, you know, being up in New Rochelle and Westchester, a lot of times we would run through them stores up there, like what was that? So Lord Taylor's and this and that.
Yeah, Lord Taylor's. Yeah, I forgot about Lord Taylor's.
Yeah, we go.
Yeah. We ran through Lord Taylor's and then we went downtown and they had a party at Manhattan Center. And when we got down there, it was a whole bunch of next dudes. They had on a whole bunch of low shit. And I remember one dude was like, yo, where y'all from? And we was like, from here. And they was like, where y'all from? They was like, we from Brooklyn. You know, it was bugged out because, you know, that let me see that it was other dudes that was doing, you know, some of the things we was doing it, but they was doing it to even a more extent that we was doing it. But, you know, we was still there. Two thing, and, you know, Pooh Bah rocked a lot of low, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, it was a thing because, you know, at the time, you know, Run DMC and them, they had the Adidas and, you know, every other people had the Pumas and this and that. So we was like, how can we do something and be a little bit different, but still be fly? And that was one of the things that we gravitated to. Hey, yo, check it out, the Wild Cowboys, Charlotte on the scene, no cap, the Wild Cowboys. Hey, baby, punk, step up and get the beat down. Come on, members, come on. You already know, 199, the Grace, Sadat X, 101, no duplicates.
Damn! Thank you, brother.